And in this fireside chat, we have with us Mr. S. Shivakumar, who's the host for the session. And joining him in this chat will be Professor Ramesh Chand, member Niti Aayog. They are both all set to take this fireside chat forward. But meanwhile, may I request the members of the audience who are still standing to please kindly have your seats. If you're not through with the coffee or tea as yet, please do try and bring it back to your table. But meanwhile, a special request to all of you who are standing at the back. Please kindly have your seats. I warmly welcome Mr. S. Sivakumar. He's the host for this session. May I request him to please join us on stage? A very warm welcome to you, sir. And now it gives me great pleasure to welcome on stage Professor Ramesh Chand, member Niti Aayog. Very warm welcome to you, sir. So as we have already shared, the theme for this year is Cultivating the Future. With that, I hand it over to Mr. S. Sivakumar to take it forward.
Very good morning to all of you and welcome back to this session. 6 years ago, in a similar fireside chat where I was hosting, and we also had Dr. Ramesh Chand on the platform, the conversation was from sustenance to sustainable farming. And after that session, Vipin came across and said, I think this is something that we would want to pursue as a regular feature. So what should we brand it as? We bounced around a few names and okay, on the spot with Shiv, which ensured that I turned up every year since then. And this is the 7th edition that we are running, and I'm happy to be amongst all of you and diverse topics each year. And this year, we said the theme of the session is Cultivating the Future. Now, what is the background for a theme like that? Since independence, Indian agriculture has made remarkable progress. We began post-independence with lots of concern on feeding our people. Unless the next ship came, there was always a challenge in the early days to deliver food to people. From that situation, 75 years later, the population has increased by over 4 times since then. But Indian agriculture has also grown. The food grain production itself is well over 6 times, which means the per capita availability has gone up. Horticulture is even a better story, contributing to more nutrition and diversity. Horticulture has grown 11 times since then. Milk, 14 times. And fish, as many as 25 times. And eggs, which is a fair amount of exports, is 75 times. I think that's the kind of a growth that one has seen. In the morning, we also heard in the opening session that agriculture is one of the primary contributor to reducing the multidimensional poverty in India from a little under a third to a little over 10% of the total population. So I think that's a remarkable kind of contribution. And we do have some amount of import, vegetable oil, wood from the sector broadly. But exports far exceed that number, and we are a net exporter when it comes to agriculture sector. So food security, nutrition security, and through the COVID and since then, all of this enabled the government to really launch really huge social support for free grain to people, as also at very low prices for another segment. So I think that's the progress which happened, and so all of this is certainly one side. Now, when I think of cultivating the future, we also look at the challenges as we see today. I don't have the exact number of measurement when you look at all India, like I talked about production numbers, which is far easier. But if you look at groundwater depletion, in many places where I lived, one had to go as much as 10 times deeper than even the time when I was a child. Or if you look at organic carbon in soil, there is a very significant reduction which happened. And nothing much to write home about air quality if you are in the city of Hyderabad, in the city of Delhi just now. And now, on top of all of these such natural kind of resources that in some sense we also messed around as part of this growth, the additional looming feature is also in terms of climate change, which is further impacting everything in terms of agriculture productivity and poverty, and some of that also we talked about in the earlier sessions. Although we talked about poverty reduction, but if you look at the per capita income of farmers, for well over 40% of our population, still agriculture is a primary source of livelihood. The per capita income there is still a very small proportion of our even average per capita, which is still have a long way to go in terms of its own growth. So therefore, if you are looking at a Viksit Bharat 2047 and what is it that we would like to cultivate into that future, certainly the farmer incomes will have to go up manifold. And natural resource, not just stop depletion and ideally regenerate, and certainly build resilience to climate. There's also an opportunity to help mitigate from agriculture, take care of that. And in the evolving context of consumption, not just food and nutrition, but as part of our renewable energy, agriculture is an important contributor to fuel and fiber as well. Now, if all of this has to be factored, and an important ingredient of raising incomes is potentially a significant amount of exports, which would mean that all of this also has to happen in a very competitive context. Now, putting all of this together is how we need to cultivate our future. And how do we go about doing it? I think none better than Dr. Ramesh Chand, who is at the very apex of the policy in influencing the way he has already done till now and what he can further do going forward, and what is it that is happening and can happen and what else is missing. We will dive a little deeper during the session. On the element of natural resources, several policies already have been put into action in the last few years. A policy to support sustainable farming, policy to support natural farming, policy to support organic farming, mechanization which will help in precision farming, and so on and so forth. So with that kind of a background, Rameshji, can I request you to elaborate a little bit more on what are all of these policies trying to really drive in trying to cultivate this future?
Thank you, Shiv Kumar ji. Is it okay or I should use the mic? Okay? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I am happy that in this summit you are giving very high importance to agriculture, whether it is in relation to future, whether it is in relation to gender empowerment. I feel that agriculture has a central role. Why it has a central role? There are strong reasons. I would just mention two, three more convincing reason to focus on agriculture if we want to talk about securing a better future for India, humanities. So, in fact, I just want to share with you that globally, this new thinking is emerging on new role of agriculture. Right now, not many people, because before 2007 8, you will find that agriculture was shadowed by high growth of non-agriculture sector, and we were forgetting as if agriculture is not important for growth, it is not important for equity. We can do things by focusing on manufacturing and services. But global financial crisis changed the situation totally. After that, at global level, again, this is a surprising statement. After 2007, agriculture globally has grown at a higher rate than overall non-agriculture, including manufacturing. And the growth rate is not 5% or 10% higher than non-agriculture. It is 33% higher than what is the growth rate of non-agriculture. And many economies, non-agriculture has collapsed. The only source of growth there, like you look at data on Brazil, is agriculture. If you exclude agriculture, you find that no growth is happening. Then we had COVID. We found that during that shock, non-economic activities came to almost halt, but growth rate of agriculture was either same or better even during that kind of situation. When we talk of, and those of you who are interested, just to in Kautilya Economic Conclave, I presented a paper on reimagining role of agriculture in development and sustainability. Business Standard editor Bhattacharya ji was there. So he was after me that you give a write-up, we will publish it in Business Standard. So I provided those, I put those thoughts in that article, and some of you may be interested in seeing that article in Business Standard, I think about 1.5 months back. When we are talking of cultivating our future, I think in India there are two kind of factors that what we should be doing to cultivate better future, and second is what we should not be doing to cultivate better future. And the set of things which we should not be doing is much bigger than what are the things under what we should be doing, because there is a momentum in the sector that even if we proactively do not do many things, things will start happening, and you will find that the objective of growth will be intact for next 10, 15 years. But there are large number of things which we should not be doing to see to it that we do not sacrifice our long term for short term gains. In agriculture, this is what we have been doing. I would say that these trends started somewhere around mid 90s, that we started doing things where we just changed the short term goals and slowly, completely ignored what were the long term kind of growth. And if we do not fix the things in agriculture on things which we should not be doing, then I think we will be heading toward a serious trouble. And focusing attention on agriculture is much more important for India than the rest of the world. Again, I can share some facts with you that in India we use 80 to 90% water in agriculture. And you know, in summer, in many areas, we have to take water in tankers, water in trains, even to give drinking water. We have so much of shortage, but in agriculture, we use 80 to 90% water. It is not that agriculture require that much of water, but it is happening because the method of irrigation which we use, flood irrigation, that necessitates that you will be using 3 to 4 times of water compared to what you can use if you use better method of irrigation. Like if you compare how much water we are using for agriculture, for producing 1 ton of food, wheat, rice, soybean, maize, cotton, and compare it how much is the world average and what China is doing, you will get very, I would say, surprising and disappointing number that in India we use 3 to 4 times the amount of water that is used to produce 1 ton of food in China, and from world average we are using 50% to 100% more water. So it is not that agriculture necessitates that you use 80-90% of water, but the method of irrigation which we are using is flood irrigation. Now the question is that why we are using flood irrigation, why we are not using drip, why we are not using sprinkler, why we are not having a raised bed plantation, which nowadays you find some farmers are doing it, why we are not doing it. And another thing is that the states where per hectare use of water comes at the top are not the most productive states. Their rank has gone down. They are not the most productive. Whereas many other states where water use per hectare is much smaller, you find productivity is much higher. So then why it is happening? I come state rather than taking things around that why there is flood irrigation, because our policies have not left any incentive or any requirement with the farmer that you think of using water efficiently. So if power to draw groundwater is either highly subsidized or it is free or it is at flat rate, so there is no incentive with the farmer that he should use less irrigation. So it's not that solutions do not exist to take care of the positive income effect of free power for agriculture, its effect on farmer. There are options available. So because we are not using that options, even in the very high rainfall area, you find that the water table is declining. If you look at what is the number of critical block, what is the number of semi-critical block, you will find that that number, the trend is that it is rising. In most of the cases, we are withdrawing more groundwater compared to what is the water that goes down because of precipitation and seepage from rivers and canals. So in some states, even mining of water is taking place. So that comes to policy that as long as we have this free power kind of thing, there's no incentive with the farmer. So this kind of things will continue. So one thing which from Niti Aayog side we talk to the states that the solution can be, in fact, Andrew is here from World Bank side, they also try to test some pilots in state of Punjab, Pani Bachao, Paisa Kamao, those kind of things. So answer is simple that like in state of Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, where this fastest depletion of groundwater is happening, the solution which we proposed was there is a subsidy on power of 6,000 crore rupees. So we suggested that you divide this 6,000 crore rupees by gross cropped area and give that much amount to farmer as a DBT, direct benefit transfers, but install meters, let power be measured and how much power any farmer use, let him pay for it. In this process, farmer will also benefit because he is getting 8,000 or 9,000 rupee per acre subsidy for power, which otherwise he was availing, but he can even increase it by making less use of water, going for efficient use of water. Then some farmer leader met me. They said, okay, this time you are suggesting you give 8,000 rupee per acre, but power price keep increasing. What about future? So I told them the solution for this also exists, that this payment of DBT can be indexed to what is the cost of what is the price or what is the tariff on electricity. So solution exists, but I think we are not proactively doing things because as of now we have not reached a situation where just things come to an halt. Probably we are waiting for that day. So in terms of policies, sustainability and securing future, the measures which are suggested at the level of central government, they are all included in the umbrella program of National Action Plan for Climate Change. Under National Action Plan for Climate Change, you will find that there are 10 sustainability missions, including mission on water, including mission on solar, mission for Himalayan states. So like that, you find that there is a comprehensive policy framework to take advantage of that. Other than that, there are many other measures that the best way to ensure sustainability is if we are promoting efficiency in agriculture. Like Government of India started soil health cards. Again, the idea was that right now, in case of fertilizer, the nutrient use efficiency, it varies state to state. On an average, India, you find 35 to 40%. 60% of nutrients either go into air or they go into water, so they start creating pollution. So if you have soil health card, you come to know what is the exact requirement of crop and what is deficiency in the soil. So you give nutrition according to that, and then you again use some practices which are more efficient than simply broadcasting fertilizer in the fields. Then second measure is if you look at micro irrigation. About 15 years back, we were adding only 1 lakh hectare area under drip and sprinkler. Last 7 years, this figure reached 10 lakh hectare area under micro irrigations. So these are just two examples, but like that, we are having so many examples of promoting sustainability. Right now, their impact, as I would say, that micro irrigation, every year we are adding 1 million hectare, and we have reached a figure of around 13 million hectare, whereas we are providing overall irrigation, if we consider the gross cropped area, to 55% area. So it is 110 million hectares. So the area on which we are making sustainable use of water, that comes to only 13 to 14% area, but it is happening, and it is expanding, and it is expanding in those states where there is water scarcity. Like 2/3 of micro irrigation is happening in Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka, Rajasthan, and I think one more state, I forgot the name. So 5 states, you find that 2/3 of micro irrigation has happened there. So if we address this issue of user charges, appropriately pricing water, then the solution exists for sustainability of water. Similarly, other kind of measures are that we all know that there are two major sources of emission in agriculture. One is enteric fermentation, bovine, livestock, they release fermentation. They release greenhouse gases, particularly methane. Around 40% of the total greenhouse gas emission from agriculture comes from bovine population, cows and buffaloes. Another 40% comes from rice. So in rice, what is the reason? In case of rice, rice is grown by keeping water standing in the fields. When you keep water standing in the fields, then it creates anaerobic conditions, and for survival, the microbe in the soil, they start breaking the organic matters. And when they break the organic matter, any organic matter getting decomposed, it will release greenhouse gas emissions, greenhouses. So that is the second source. So alternatively, like you might have heard in state of Haryana, they are paying to every farmer that if you go for direct seeded rice, rather than this prevalent methods of having a rice nursery, then puddling of soil, then going for transplantation, it results in 20 to 30% savings of water and much less greenhouse gas emissions. So those kind of measures are also being promoted, and others are, you might have heard about organic farming, natural farming, that some of the greenhouse gases are also emitted by use of agrochemical, chemical fertilizer. They also have effect on pollution of soil, pollution of water, pollution of airs. So as an alternative, this organic farming, natural farming, those kind of things are also being promoted. Two other measures quickly I will mention before I give the floor back to Shiv Kumar ji for raising next issue. That is, some of you might have heard about this scheme, Waste to Wealth or circular economy. Uh, 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 Government of India is providing some capital subsidy to those who make use of biomass for producing energy. Like right now, we know that in winter, air quality, all those issues, why it happen, one of the contributory factor is burning of rice straw. So as an alternative, now alternative exists, and this alternative is already spreading. We are not realizing it. The number of farm fire in Punjab this year was 1/5 of what was the peak year when farm fire in 17-18 were at top level. How they are reducing? Because now many firms, they are buying rice straw. They are using it for producing compressed biogas, and whatever is the residue bioslurry, that goes back into the field again. So this kind of initiative are already working. Government of India is providing support for it, and some of the even multinational company, they are making use of cow dung, because whenever there is a cow dung, you know there is some gas in it, and that gas is not good for environment, but that gas is a energy. So in Gujarat, this Suzuki with the National Dairy Development Board, they have set up two big plants where they are buying gobar from the farmers. That you bring gobar from your place and they use it, they take out the gas, which rather than polluting the environment become a source of energy, and but remains, that is enriched organic matter. That again goes back to the field for fertilization. So like this, there is consciousness that this is something which relate to our future. It can't go like this. It also affect efficiency, competitiveness, cost of production. So there are large number of measures which are happening, but I will say that right now you find that their adoption is at low level, but with the continued efforts, as in case of micro irrigation, we are able to increase the share of micro irrigation in total irrigation in the country to 13-14%, which is, I think, quite impressive. So like that, if we make progress on that rate, as we have made in case of micro irrigation, then I think we can address these issues related to sustainability, which will also be bin from several angles: reduction in cost, improvement in efficiency, improvement in quality, and many other things.
Great. Thanks for that 360-degree perspective on many aspects. So, but one thing is clear, that what needs to be done, there is a fair amount of consensus. But the policies that have been put in place, barring a couple that you illustrated, are not at a pace that is desired. So, are there any new thoughts that you are really thinking of now to accelerate this a little bit more, because the level of natural resource depletion is happening so rapidly, notwithstanding all these different measures, that even if this trajectory continues with this improvement over the last few years, I think we will not get very far. So, if you have to accelerate, what are the kind of thoughts that you have?
You see, the problem with subsidy is that initially you start with a purpose, and that purpose is that you want to promote production. This is how subsidy in fertilizer was started, that new input has come. If we provide some incentive to producer, they will use it and production will increase. So initially you give in any sector, even in manufacturing, PLI, mainly to promote growth, to increase production. So initially, I would say that this is something like a sweet. You are eating sweets, but slowly it takes the shape of poison. It becomes harmful. But then we get so much used to it that getting rid of that and removing that is not easy kind of things. So again, I would say that as far as the major incentive and subsidies are concerned, which are related to sustainability issues, which are related to future of agriculture, are of two types. One is subsidies on water, which are given 100% by state governments. And second is subsidy on fertilizer, which about 90% is given by central government. There is top up kind of thing in some of these states, but 90% is given by state center governments. Uh, we proposed from Niti Ayog side that let us take fertilizer subsidy, where major subsidy happen on urea, and not many in this group may be knowing that the cost of one bag of urea of 45 kg is about 1200 rupees, but farmers are paying rupees 260, and this rupees 260 is almost fixed for more than 20 years, almost frozen. And in the same period, if you look at minimum support prices in that 20 years, you will find in all the cases it has increased by more than 100%. So we just proposed this something like DVT, that you give it directly to the farmer, as we did in case of LPG, and do something like large farmers who have large holdings. Let us give them half subsidy, let us give them full subsidy to small and marginal farmers. But again, there is strong opposition from farmer side also, even though we try to convince them that whatever the increase in cost of production will happen because of reduction in subsidy, it will be captured in cost and you will get higher MSP. Now there is a formula, rather you may get more, because if your cost increase by 10 rupee, the price fixed is 15 rupees. So you calculate that if cost increase, you gain because you get bigger margin over that cost. But somehow this psyche of farmer is stuck around it. We made first major attempt to address it in 1991 when we started economic reforms. But within 6 months, it was rolled back. Again, we started in 95. Again, it was rolled back. So I think because of this experience, last 15, 20 years, you find that no attempt has been made for fear of rolling it back, rolling it back. But it's not that we have lost hope. We still keep devising something. This DBT was tried on a pilot basis in some place, and it worked very well. But then that require database of the farmer and several other things, and POS, that point of sale record, who is buying fertilizer, how much he or she is buying, what is the requirements. So this is one. And second is that can we find substitute of chemical fertilizer? Then automatically the subsidy thing get reduced. So again, some development is happening there, that in budget previous to previous years, bio input resource center, that you find some biofertilizer which can be substitute for agrochemical, and automatically then you will find. Or if farmer are going for natural farming, if they are going for organic farming, then you don't make use of these kind of things. So I would admit that to reduce the subsidy, both fertilizer and water, we have not achieved much success in the conventional way. So many other things are being tried, including improving the efficiency of fertilizer, that rather than broadcasting, rather than looking at what is the requirement of the plant, you make use of sensor which will tell you. You make use of plant leaf analysis which will tell you at what time, how much fertilizer is required. Even this development of nano urea, though further developments are now happening. Earlier, government tried with IFCO 4% concentration urea. Now they have increased it to 16% to make it more effective. Similarly, this nano DAP. So those are the kind of efforts which are being made, that how we can reduce this extent of subsidy, which is a concern not only from fiscal point of view, but I would say from sustainability point of view also.
So let's switch gears from policy, while there are many other areas to see in terms of how to do it. In the interest of time, we switch the gear and look at, in the whole 2047 aspiration, there is, for Indian economy at large, we are looking at a $30 trillion aspiration. And there are, of course, higher numbers also being talked about, 35, 50, and so on. But even if you take the base number of 30, what proportion of that is really seen as agriculture? And in getting there, what role of exports for agriculture do you really see in that? In that context, all these policies, how will they play a role?
You see, if you look at the growth rate of Indian agriculture, which over time has accelerated. I was member of working group of 11th 5-year plan, 10th 5-year plan, and 12th 5-year plan, where this was considered as a dream that if we can achieve 4% growth rate in agriculture. But if you look at the last 10 years data, we are very close to achieving 4% growth rate in agriculture, depending upon which method you use to measure. Even though 23-24 growth rate came down to 1%, but still you will find that we are closer to that. So that is the kind of growth. which we expect that next 10-15 year Indian agriculture will move on the trend growth rate of 3.5 to 4%. In some year it may go down to 1 year, but next year it will be 6%. So average is likely to come around 3.5%. Now, what is happening on demand side? If you look at growth rate of population, our population growth rate is decelerating, and the growth rate in next 10 years in population is projected to be less than 1%. Then second factor because of which domestic demand increase is per capita income. So there is a elasticity kind of thing which we use, that if income increase by 1%, fruit demand will increase by say 0.7, cereal demand may not increase, but livestock demand will increase by some factors. So if we combine all those kind of things, then we find that on account of increase in income, there will be increase in demand somewhere around 1.25, little bit plus minus. So total growth in domestic demand for quantity of food will not be more than 2.5 or vary between 2 to 2.5. So when production growth is 3.5 and domestic demand is rising by 2.5, this has simple implication that you or India as a country will be required to find overseas market for nearly 1/3 of the incremental output. So 1/3 of the growth we have to find. Already we are exporting 10% of our total production. So we will be required this proportion will increase, and we will be required that by 2030 we either sell 1/3 of our production in overseas market, or we find alternative uses to other than the existing uses as a food, feed, fiber, industrial use, etc. Like to give you example that 2 years back we had huge surplus of sugar, but then our domestic price was 30% more than what was international price. So we couldn't export it because of this MSP thing, which ignore what is international price. After we adopted new formula in 18, that price MSP has to be at least 50% more than a certain kind of cost. So that in some year turn our domestic prices much higher than what our international price, which has implication for export. So it was against WTO rules to exports, and we were not able to export. So we had to use that for ethanol, and then in the 2 years we exceeded even our goal of blending with bio ethanol. Simple reason was that we were not able to sell our surplus in international market. So there will be surplus which will increase. We have to find best ways to sell it in the export market or in foreign exchange, and that is efficient way of disposing it. And if we are not able to do it, we may have our stock will swell, then we need to make use of that for other uses. So this is the picture which is emerging, that share of export will increase, and share of net export will also increase. Like if you look at latest picture, we are importing edible oil and all other things about 25 to 30 billion US dollar, and exports are around 50 billion US dollars. So there is a huge surplus. We are net trade surplus in case of agriculture. By 2047, Viksit Bharat, again, those of you who are interested may see my paper on Niti Yog side, Indian agriculture from Green Revolution to Amrit Kal, where I presented likely picture of agriculture in the next 3-4 years. The broader picture in terms of specific number which Shiv Kumar ji asked me is that what will be share of agriculture. Our projections are that by 2047, share of agriculture, which right now in total income of the country is 18%, it will go below 10%, maybe 8-9%. This is what is going to happen, because whatever best growth of agriculture, long run it will not be more than 4%, and the rest of the economy growing at 6 to 7%. So share will go down to that level. But in terms of manpower that is working in agriculture, some of the model which shows, some of the simulation which we did, they were just showing that manpower that will be employed in agriculture will go down to around 22% or so. But as I mentioned in my paper on business standards, that impact of new technologies, frontier technologies, AI, etc., about which we are talking, what will be its impact on employment? The initial signals are that these kind of technologies are certainly happening in labor displacement, particularly in manufacturing sector and in services sector. So whatever employment growth, it was already slow in case of manufacturing. It did not happen. Manufacture in India is not able to increase jobs at such a high rate that it absorbs many people from agriculture, and share of employment in agriculture decline. In fact, the data of last 6-7 years shows that it has completely stopped. The share of worker in agriculture were around 44%, and it has increased in 6-7 years to close to 46%. Rather than declining, it has started increasing, and reason is that this industry, services, going for more and more capital intensive production, preference for capital over labor. There are so many issues under this. So that scenario comes out to be a bit scary for employment, but you can't stop technology from unfolding. They will happen the way they will happen. So that's why in my paper I emphasize that we should not ignore employment conditions in agriculture. We should pay attention to how we can make agriculture work more remunerative, more decent, because earlier, if say 10 million people were moving out of agriculture because of these frontier technology, etc., etc., that shift will not be 10 million, it will be lower. It could be 7 million, and like that, implying that share of agriculture in employment will decline at a much slower rate. So that is the kind of scenario about which we are preparing.
Thank you. So I already had multiple SOS from the organizing team that we run
Okay.
beyond our schedule. So we will wrap up there, although there are many more things that I want to probe Rameshji on. But quick takeaways that there is an appreciation on what goes into cultivating future on part of government, who still drives large part of the sector. But we need more creativity in getting some of these policies to translate into real action and more accelerated action on the ground. We'll build on that in other conversations. Technology is going to play an important role to work on, whether it's water, or soil, or nutrients, and so on. That's the other piece. And given the whole issue on jobs and incomes, we can't rely only on the Indian market as part of that future. Exports will play a far more significant role. And what does it take to be globally competitive in the context of all the support that farmers expect and political economy will have to factor are the areas that we need to grapple with also the lower jobs getting created elsewhere. I think some of that is what we could bounce around today, and I'll leave it at that just now, and wish the rest of the conversation in the summit all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sirs. We'd like to present a small token of our appreciation and thanks to you. We thank Professor Ramesh Chand and Mr. S. Sivakumar both.